Bleeding Love, a short love story inspired by the song of the same name by Leona Lewis. Chapter 2. The Unexpected Attraction. The week that followed the charity event was filled with an uncharacteristic restlessness for Charlotte. The mysterious man's image invaded her every thought, and the undercurrent of desire she'd felt that night continued to surge like a hidden river. One day, while she was in a design meeting, her assistant rushed in, apologizing for the interruption, and handed Charlotte a business card. She turned it over, and her heart skipped a beat. The name Maxwell Harrington was embossed in gold, and beneath it, CEO Harrington Investments. "The gentleman is waiting in your office," her assistant informed her, and Charlotte nodded, her fingers tracing the edges of the card. It was him, the man from the charity event. As she walked towards her office, she felt an unfamiliar flutter of anticipation. Pushing the door open, she saw him. Dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, Maxwell stood by the window, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the sprawling London skyline. As he turned to face her, she caught her breath. Up close, he was even more handsome, his blue eyes darker, more intense. "Miss Clark," he greeted, his voice as smooth as aged whiskey. He reached out for a handshake, his touch firm yet gentle, sending a jolt of electric energy up her arm. The meeting was supposed to be about potential investment opportunities in her fashion house, but the tension in the room was palpable. It was a dance of words and lingering looks, of paperwork interspersed with subtle flirtations. They were like two magnetic poles, drawn to each other, yet maintaining a distance. She observed him as he spoke, the way his lips curved around words, the subtle deepening of his voice when he was making an important point, and how his eyes sparkled with a hidden desire that matched hers. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by light banter and lingering glances. There was a natural chemistry between them, a certain electrifying connection that Charlotte had never experienced before. She felt herself getting drawn in, captivated by this charismatic man. As the meeting drew to a close, Maxwell stood up, placing his hands on her desk as he leaned forward. His cologne filled her senses, a mix of sandalwood and spice, and she felt her heartbeat quicken. "I look forward to working with you, Miss Clark," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "And I with you, Mr. Harrington," she replied, a hint of a promise in her tone. As he walked out of her office, Charlotte sank into her chair, her body tingling with the remnants of his presence. She was dangerously close to crossing the line she had drawn for herself years ago. She was playing with fire and she knew it, but with every moment spent with Maxwell, her resolve seemed to weaken, her heart yearning to explore the connection she felt with him. As she sat alone in her office, she realized that her carefully controlled world was spiraling into a whirlwind of desire and anticipation. Her thoughts were consumed by him, his scent still lingering in the air, his voice echoing in her ears. For the first time in a long while, Charlotte felt truly alive. Her heart was bleeding love, a sweet yet terrifying sensation. Despite the fear, there was an excitement, a thrill that she had long forgotten. She was walking on a tightrope, balancing her fear of heartbreak with the lure of love. And even though the fall could be devastating, she couldn't deny the intoxicating feeling of the wind in her hair and the view from the top. For the rest of the day, Charlotte found herself lost in her thoughts, her mind replaying the encounter, each word, each glance, each charged moment. Maxwell's undeniable charm had managed to pierce her armor, and she felt an undeniable attraction towards him. That night, lying in her king-sized bed draped in Egyptian cotton, Charlotte's thoughts drifted towards Maxwell. She imagined him there with her, his strong arms around her, his whispers in her ear. She could almost feel his breath on her skin, his fingers tracing a path down her spine. She clutched at her pillow, her breath hitching as her imagination painted a vivid picture of passion and intimacy. There was a sharp intake of breath as she quickly sat up, shaking her head to clear her thoughts. She was startled by her own desires, by the intensity of the feelings that Maxwell had invoked in her. She had allowed herself to get carried away by the mere thought of him, and it both excited and scared her. As she laid back down, she decided that she had to keep her feelings in check. She couldn't let herself get carried away. She needed to maintain her distance, to keep herself safe from the potential heartbreak that love brought with it. It was just a business relationship, she reminded herself. Nothing more, nothing less. But even as she told herself this, Charlotte couldn't help but wonder if she could resist the attraction she felt for Maxwell. Was it possible to ignore the sparks that flew every time they were in the same room? Could she deny herself the pleasure of his company, the excitement of his touch? She closed her eyes, a sigh escaping her lips as she allowed herself to sink into the soft comfort of her bed. One thing was clear: she was standing at the crossroads of desire and fear, and she had a tough decision to make. As sleep finally claimed her, Charlotte's dreams were filled with images of Maxwell, of shared glances and secret smiles, of soft whispers and softer touches. Her heart ached with a strange longing, her body humming with anticipation. Unbeknownst to her, across town in a high-rise apartment, Maxwell Harrington found himself equally restless, his thoughts filled with a woman whose beauty and spirit had captivated him. And so the dance of desire continued, a dance as old as time itself, filled with anticipation, passion, and the undeniable allure of the forbidden. The stage was set, the actors ready. All that remained was for the curtain to rise on the next act of their tantalizing tale. Bleeding Love is comprised of 6 chapters. To watch or listen to all 6 chapters, why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries? Or if you want to experience your own real-life romance, why not visit one of our sponsors by clicking on a link in the description. The next chapter is Chapter 3, An Unavoidable Encounter.